I'm Mira, and at 37, I thought I had my life all figured out. A perfect suburban home, a steady marriage, and a routine so polished it could blind you. But beneath the manicured lawn and matching sedans, a hollow ache gnawed at me, whispering that something vital was missing. My husband, Ethan, and I were strangers sharing a silence heavier than any argument, until one night he handed me an invitation to a mysterious club called The Vale, a place promising escape, danger, and a chance to become someone else. Desperate for a spark, I stepped into a world of masks and shadows, where every glance and touch ignited a fire I'd forgotten I could feel. But as the night unfolded, I realized I might have crossed a line I can't uncross. What did I just awaken in myself, and in us? Here I am, at 37, standing at the edge of a life I've built brick by careful brick, wondering if the foundation is even mine. My name is Mira, and I've spent over a decade crafting a world that looks perfect from the outside. My husband, Ethan, is 39, a man of quiet strength, the kind who never raises his voice or misses a deadline at his finance job. We've been married for 12 years, living in a suburban home just outside Chicago, where the lawn is always trimmed just so, and the two-car garage holds our matching sedans like a silent testament to our stability. Our life is a well-rehearsed routine, comfortable, predictable, the kind of existence most people dream of. We take annual vacations to places like Italy and Hawaii, snapping photos of sunsets and ancient ruins, our smiles practiced and polite. Our shared savings account grows each year, a neat little number in black ink that somehow feels like the only thing binding us together some days. But beneath the surface there's a stillness that started to weigh on me. Ethan and I, we never argue. I used to wear that like a medal, a shiny proof of our harmony. Now it feels more like a void, an empty space where something vital should be. The silence between us isn't hostile. It's heavier than that, like a thick fog rolling in, muffling every sound, every spark, every hint of what used to be passion. I can't remember the last time we looked at each other and really saw something beyond the familiar. It's in the small things, the mundane details that make up our days. Every evening at dinner, Ethan folds his napkin into a perfect square, tucking it beside his plate with the precision of a surgeon, as if that tiny act of control is all he needs. And me? I sit there, staring at the same chipped blue coffee mug every morning, the words "World's Best Wife" fading into a ghostly outline. I trace the crack along the rim with my thumb and feel nothing. Not pride, not irony, just a hollow space where something should ache. I've started to notice how the quiet creeps into every corner of our home. It's there in the way our footsteps echo on the hardwood floors, in the way the TV hums softly in the background, because neither of us can stand the complete absence of sound. I catch myself wondering what it would be like to feel something raw again, something unscripted. There were moments, years ago, when Ethan and I would lose ourselves in each other, tangled up in a kind of heat that didn't need words. Now, even the memory of that fire feels like a distant dream, something I can only glimpse through a haze. I long for a connection that isn't just habit, a jolt to wake me from this sleepwalk of a life. I don't know what I'm searching for, not yet. But the restlessness is there, gnawing at me. A quiet storm I can't name or tame. So, there I was, sitting on our gray sectional couch, the one Ethan and I had picked out together 5 years ago during a rare moment of shared excitement over something as mundane as furniture. The fabric felt familiar under my fingertips, a little worn in the spots where we always sat. A silent witness to countless evenings spent in our predictable rhythm. Ethan was beside me, holding that mysterious envelope he'd brought home, his fingers steady as he slid it open. I watched, my breath catching just a little, as he pulled out a sleek black card, the gold lettering catching the light from the lamp on the side table, It looked expensive, exclusive, like something out of a world we didn't belong to. He turned to me, his hazel eyes holding a glint of something I hadn't seen in ages, maybe anticipation, maybe a challenge, and said he'd signed us up for a private club called The Veil. A place, he explained, where people could step out of their everyday lives, slip into different roles, and become someone else for a few hours. My first reaction was a jumble of confusion and a tiny spark of curiosity that I couldn't quite smother. What did he mean by roles? Was this some kind of game, a costume party, or something deeper? I shifted on the couch, the cushion dipping under me, and asked him straight out, "What kind of roles are we talking about, Ethan? And is it safe?" My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to, betraying the unease curling in my chest. He leaned back, his posture relaxed, almost too calm, and told me it was part theater, part psychological experiment designed to push boundaries but in a controlled, secure environment. His words were smooth, reassuring, but they didn't give me much to hold on to. I pressed my hands into my lap, feeling the tension coil tighter in my shoulders. I wanted details, specifics, something concrete to ease the uncertainty. But Ethan just reached over, squeezed my hand, and promised I'd understand once we were there. I didn't agree because I was convinced or because I fully grasped what the veil was. No, I agreed because I was desperate for anything to break the monotony that had settled over us like dust. Our life had become a series of motions, a checklist of tasks and polite exchanges, and I craved a disruption, even if it scared me. So I nodded, my throat tight, and said, "Okay, let's do it." Ethan's face softened just for a moment, and I wondered if he felt the same weight I did, the same need for something to shake us awake. Fast forward to the night we arrived at the Veil, and I could barely keep my nerves in check. The building was downtown, an unmarked brick structure that looked more like an abandoned warehouse than a club. Its exterior was gritty, industrial, with streaks of rust staining the edges of the metal doorframe, and I couldn't help but wonder if we were in the right place. Ethan parked the car a block away, and as we walked toward that looming door, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The air was cool, carrying the faint grit of the city, and my black dress felt too tight, too exposed, even though it was modest by any standard. Ethan had insisted we wear masks, sleek ones made of dark lace that covered half our faces, and as I adjusted mine, I caught a glimpse of myself in a nearby window. Unrecognizable, a stranger even to myself. That should have scared me, but instead, it sent a thrill through me, a whisper of something dangerous and alive. Inside, the atmosphere shifted like stepping into another world. The dim corridors smelled of aged wood and something faintly metallic, and a woman named Celeste greeted us with a voice like velvet, smooth and commanding. She was tall, her presence almost regal, dressed in a flowing black gown that seemed to absorb the faint light. Her mask was different, ornate with silver filigree, and her eyes behind it were sharp, assessing. She led us deeper into the building, past heavy curtains and shadowed corners, until we reached a small, circular room. The walls were pitch black, absorbing every hint of light except for the fractured glow cast by a single chandelier above, its crystals dripping like frozen tears, scattering shards of illumination across the space. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation, and I could barely breathe as Celeste gestured for Ethan to stand in a corner, apart from me. I wanted to reach for him, to anchor myself to something familiar, but her silent command held me in place. Then I saw them, 7 strangers, all cloaked in black, their faces hidden behind opaque masks that revealed nothing. They formed a loose circle around me, their presence both suffocating and magnetic, like a storm I couldn't escape but didn't want to. The silence in the room was oppressive, broken only by the faint clink of the chandelier's crystals swaying above. I could feel their eyes on me, even through those masks, and it was as if they were peeling back my skin, seeing every doubt, every hidden desire I'd buried for years. My pulse raced, my palms damp beneath the lace gloves I wore, and I glanced at Ethan, hoping for reassurance. He stood motionless, his own mask obscuring his expression, but his voice cut through the quiet, low and steady. Try not to think, Mira. Just feel. Let yourself be. His words were a lifeline and a push into the abyss all at once, and I felt my chest tighten with a mix of fear and something else, something reckless. Inside, I was a mess of contradictions. Fear clawed at me, whispering that I didn't belong here, that I should run back to the safety of my predictable life. Shame burned hot in my veins, telling me I was betraying everything I'd built, everything I was supposed to be. But beneath it all, there was this growing urge, this desperate need to shatter the Mira I'd always been, to step into something raw and untamed. I wanted to break free, to feel something real, even if it hurt. And so I let myself engage with these strangers, slowly at first, testing the waters of this strange, charged space. My eyes lingered on one, then another, each glance feeling like a confession I couldn't take back, a silent admission of things I'd never dared to voice. There was a man among them, his posture rigid yet somehow inviting, and as I turned toward him, his hand brushed mine. The warmth of his skin against my gloved fingers sent a jolt through me, electric and forbidden, like touching a live wire. My breath hitched, and I didn't pull away. Instead, I let the moment stretch, feeling the heat of that fleeting contact sear into me. Then there was a woman, her mask tilted slightly as if studying me, and her silent stare felt like it pierced through every layer I'd ever put up. It was as if she saw every hidden part of me, every unspoken longing, and I couldn't look away. I leaned into these interactions, each one peeling back a piece of myself I didn't know existed, revealing a Mira who was hungry for connection, for intensity. As the charged air in that dark circular room at the Vale began to settle, a heavy stillness took over, pressing down on me like a physical weight. My heart was still racing from the unspoken exchanges, the fleeting touches, and the piercing gazes that had stripped me bare in ways I couldn't fully grasp. The strangers around me stepped back, almost in unison, as if some invisible signal had passed between them. Their masks hid any trace of judgment or emotion, leaving me to drown in my own spiraling thoughts. I could hear my breathing, loud and ragged in the suffocating silence, each inhale and exhale echoing in my ears like a drumbeat of guilt and exhilaration. My legs trembled beneath me, unsteady as if the ground itself had shifted, and I forced myself to turn fully toward Ethan, who still stood in the corner of the room. I expected him to react, maybe storm out in a fury, or stride over and confront me with words sharp enough to cut through the haze I was lost in. But he didn't move. Not an inch. His posture was rigid, like a statue carved from stone, his hands clasped tightly in front of him as if holding himself together. His mask obscured his face, turning him into just another stranger in this surreal space. And I hated that I couldn't see his eyes, couldn't read what he was feeling. Was it anger? Disappointment? Or something darker? Something I couldn't name? My stomach churned with a mix of dread and anticipation, waiting for the storm I was sure would break. Then Celeste reappeared, her presence as commanding as ever, her black gown trailing behind her like a shadow. Her voice, smooth and unshaken, sliced through the tension, announcing that the session had concluded. There was no warmth in her tone, no hint of what she thought about what had just unfolded, just a calm directive as she guided us out of the room. I followed, my steps faltering at first, my body still buzzing with the aftershocks of everything I'd felt. The strangers dispersed without a word, their cloaked figures melting into the dimness, leaving me with nothing but the weight of my own choices. We moved back through the narrow hallway, the heavy red curtains lining the walls seeming to close in around me, their deep crimson hue almost suffocating. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if I were dragging the consequences of my actions behind me. The faint scent of aged wood and that metallic tang lingered in the air, mixing with the rapid thud of my pulse. Ethan walked just ahead of me, his silence louder than any words could have been. I wanted to reach out, to touch his shoulder, to say something, anything, to break the unbearable quiet, but my hand stayed at my side, clenched into a fist. When we finally stepped outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap, sharp and bracing after the oppressive stillness of the club. The distant sounds of the city, horns blaring, the low rumble of traffic, felt jarring, almost alien after the eerie hush of the Vale. I blinked against the faint glow of streetlights, my senses overwhelmed by the sudden shift back to reality. Ethan and I didn't speak as we made our way to our car, a silver sedan parked beneath a flickering streetlight that cast uneven shadows across the pavement. Every small detail seemed magnified in the silence between us, the sharp click of my heels against the concrete, echoing like tiny gunshots in the night. The sticky residue of the lace mask in my hand, now removed, clinging to my palm as if it carried the weight of everything I'd done. The faint, earthy scent of rain on the horizon, promising a storm I could feel building inside me as much as in the sky. We reached the car, and I hesitated for a split second before sliding into the passenger seat, the leather cool against my skin. Ethan got in beside me, his movements mechanical, deliberate, as if he were holding himself together by sheer will. I braced myself, my mind racing with a torrent of guilt and justifications, each one more flimsy than the last. What could I say? That I'd been searching for something I couldn't name? That I'd needed to feel alive, even if it meant stepping over the line I'd drawn for myself so long ago? I sat there in the passenger seat, the silence between us thicker than ever, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. The car felt like a confessional, a tiny enclosed space where every breath, every unspoken word, seemed to echo. My fingers fidgeted with the edge of my dress, the fabric rough against my skin, as I stole a glance at Ethan. His profile was sharp against the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the windshield, his jaw set, hands gripping the steering wheel, even though the engine wasn't on. I couldn't tell if he was angry or hurt or something else entirely, and that uncertainty clawed at me, tearing open a raw, aching space in my chest. Then, without warning, Ethan reached over and took my hand. His grip was firm, steady, but there was no trace of anger in it, no harshness. I froze, the shock of his touch hitting me like a wave. His palm was warm against mine, rough in places from years of quiet, unspoken labor, those small, unnoticed things he did around the house, fixing what was broken without ever asking for thanks. My breath caught in my throat, a sharp, jagged thing, as I felt the heat of his skin seep into me, grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. It was such a simple gesture, something we'd done 1,000 times over the years, but in this moment, it felt like a lifeline, like he was pulling me back from the edge of something I couldn't name. His voice broke the stillness, low and raw, like he'd been holding the words in for too long. You were brave. I saw the real you, and it's more beautiful than I imagined. Each syllable landed heavy, sinking into me, stirring up a storm of emotions I wasn't ready to face. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, hot and sudden, and I blinked hard to keep them from falling. Relief washed over me, mingling with a deep, tangled confusion. I turned to him, searching his face for any hint of deceit, any sign that this was a trick or a trap. But in the faint light, his hazel eyes were unguarded, softer than I'd seen in years, carrying a weight of sincerity that made my chest ache. There was no judgment there, no condemnation, just something that looked a lot like understanding. He went on, his words slow, deliberate, as if he were choosing each one with care. I wanted this for us, Mira. I felt the same silence you have, the same distance. And seeing you let go tonight, even if it felt like a betrayal, it showed me parts of you I'd never known. Parts I've been desperate to see. His voice dipped lower, almost a whisper, and I felt the weight of his confession settle over me. It wasn't just about what I'd done in that room at the Vale. It was about us, about the years of quiet drift, the unspoken longing that had built up like a wall between us. My heart pounded as I realized he hadn't orchestrated this night to test me, to push me into some kind of trap. He'd done it to reconnect, to break through the fog that had smothered us for so long. He'd wanted to see me, really see me, and in doing so, he'd exposed himself too. A weight lifted off my chest, so heavy I hadn't even realized how much it had been crushing me until it was gone. In its place, a fragile hope bloomed, tender and uncertain, like the first green shoot after a long, brutal winter. I let myself feel it, let myself believe, even if just for a moment, that we could find our way back to each other. My mind drifted to those charged moments in the circular room, the way I'd let myself step into something wild and untamed with those strangers. I'd felt alive in a way I hadn't in years, my skin buzzing with a kind of energy I'd thought was long buried. And now, sitting here with Ethan, I had to admit something to myself, something I couldn't push away any longer. I liked it. As Ethan started the car, the engine's low hum filled the space between us, a quiet backdrop to the storm of thoughts still swirling in my mind. We pulled away from the flickering streetlight, leaving the shadowy outline of the Vale behind us, and began the long drive back to our suburban haven just outside Chicago. The silence in the car wasn't the oppressive kind I'd grown so used to over the years. No, this was different. Shared, almost comforting, like we were both sifting through the weight of what we'd just experienced, each of us lost in our own reflections, but somehow together in it. I stared out the window, watching the familiar street slip by under the pale glow of sodium vapor lamps. The neat rows of houses, the corner diner with its neon sign buzzing faintly, the old oak tree at the intersection that always seemed to lean just a little too far into the road. It all looked the same as it always had. Yet I felt like I was seeing it through a new lens, one cracked open by the night's revelations. Ethan's hand stayed on mine, resting there on the console between us, his warmth a steady anchor as the miles ticked by. His thumb occasionally brushed against my knuckles, a small, unspoken gesture that spoke louder than any words could right then. It wasn't until we pulled into our driveway, the gravel crunching softly under the tires, that he finally let go, and even then, it felt reluctant, like neither of us wanted to break that fragile connection. We stepped out into the cool night air, the faint scent of dew on the grass mingling with the lingering tension in my chest, and walked into our home. Inside, everything was exactly as we'd left it. The gray couch with its worn spots, the chipped blue coffee mug sitting on the counter, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. It was all so ordinary, so untouched by the seismic shift I felt inside me. I stood there for a moment, just inside the doorway, my shoes still on, feeling like I'd stepped out of my own skin somewhere back at that mysterious club and hadn't quite figured out how to fit back into it. I kicked off my heels, the hardwood cold against my bare feet, and moved deeper into the house, Ethan trailing quietly behind me. It was late, well past midnight, but neither of us seemed ready to surrender to sleep. Instead, we found ourselves at the kitchen table, the small, round one tucked into the corner where we'd shared countless hurried breakfasts over the years. Ethan pulled out a bottle of red wine from the rack, a Merlot we'd been saving for no particular reason, and poured us each a glass. The deep crimson liquid caught the dim light from the overhead fixture, shimmering like a memory of the heavy curtains back at that place. We didn't talk about what had happened, not directly. There was no need to dissect it, not yet. Instead, we let the quiet settle around us, broken only by the soft clink of our glasses as we toasted to nothing in particular, just to being there, together. Then, out of nowhere, Ethan let out a low chuckle, his hazel eyes crinkling at the corners in a way I hadn't seen in ages. "Remember that vineyard trip in Napa, 10 years ago?" he asked, his voice warm with the memory. I couldn't help but smile, the edges of my lips curling up as the image came flooding back. We'd been so young, so reckless in our own innocent way, driving through those winding California roads with no map, just a vague sense of direction and a rented convertible that smelled faintly of old leather. We'd gotten hopelessly lost, ending up in some tiny, off-the-grid vineyard where the owner, an old man with hands like weathered bark, had laughed at our city-slicker confusion and poured us glass after glass of his homemade wine until we were dizzy with it. We'd stumbled back to the car hours later, giggling like kids, the taste of sun-warmed grapes still on our lips, not caring that we had no idea where we were. Sitting here now, reliving that moment, I felt a laugh bubble up in my throat, light and unburdened, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at ease. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.